Hi everyone, I'm Aura Ogorian with ACap Advisors and Accountants, and welcome to another edition of the ACap Recap, where we go behind the blog and answer some of your most important questions. And today we're going to talk about 1099s. If you're a business owner, you know that January is a time of year to file your 1099s before the 31st of January. But some business owners out there have questions about when do they have to file a 1099, what are some of the exemptions, and what are the penalties if you don't file a 1099. We're going to answer all those questions and more, but before we do, remember to subscribe, like, and share our channel. And if there's a question that you want us to answer or a topic that you want us to address, make sure you include it in the comment section below or send us a message, and we will cover it in a future edition of the ACap Recap. Welcome back. First, let's define what is a 1099. A 1099 is an IRS form, and it's used as a business owner to let the IRS know that you've paid someone. And the purpose of doing that is so the IRS can know that that person has received income and they have to report and pay tax on it. And you are able to make a tax deduction or able to deduct that on your taxes as a business. So it's kind of a cross-check system for the IRS to know that this person received money and this company got a deduction for the money that was paid. Now, there are different types of 1099s. There's a 1099 INT, 1099 DIV, and so on and so forth. But today we're going to talk about the 1099 miscellaneous and the 1099 NEC. There's going to be another video where we're going to talk about all the different 1099s, but today we're only going to focus our attention on the one that's due on January 31st of each year, and that's the 1099 miscellaneous and the 1099 NEC. How do you know if you have to issue someone a 1099? Well, in general, if you paid any non-employee $600 or more, you have to issue them a 1099. Now, I say in general because there are always exceptions, and we're going to talk about some of those exceptions later on. And also, it does not apply to employees. If you have employees, you don't issue them a 1099, you issue them a W-2, which we'll discuss later as well. As a best practice, it's always a good idea to collect the W-9 from whoever you're going to pay, a contractor, before you actually pay them. This ensures that you're able to file the 1099 accurately and you're not going to have any mistakes. If you're wondering what the difference between a W-9 is versus a W-2 or a W-4, we'll also discuss that in a future video. But really quickly, a W-9 is given to a contractor you're going to pay as a 1099, whereas a W-4 is given to an employee and you want them to complete it so they can show you how much taxes they want withheld from their paycheck. And then a W-2 is what you give to an employee at the end of the year to show them what their total income was and how much taxes were withheld. So who is exempt from getting a 1099? In general, you do not issue a 1099 to an S corporation, a C corporation, or an LLC tax as an S corporation or a C corporation. Now, as with everything with the IRS and taxes, there are exceptions to the rule, which we'll go over later on. Now, the Internal Revenue Code is silent on whether or not to issue a 1099 to a single member LLC or a partnership. So that leads me to conclude that if you paid any one of those types of entities, you're better off issuing them a 1099 so that way you don't have to pay penalties. Also, if you paid an employee for reimbursing of expenses, you don't issue them a 1099 either. A common question I get is, do I issue a 1099 to an LLC? And the shorter answer is it depends. It depends on the type of LLC. LLCs have the option of being taxed either as a C corporation, an S corporation, a single member LLC, or a partnership. If the LLC is taxed or elects to be taxed as a single member LLC or a partnership, as I mentioned earlier, you have to issue them a 1099. But if the LLC is electing to be taxed as an S corporation or a C corporation, then most of the time, you do not have to issue them a 1099. Now, I say most of the time because, again, there are exceptions to the rule. Now let's talk about who is not exempt from getting a 1099. If you paid any non-employee $600 or more, you have to issue them a 1099. So for example, if you paid a plumber, a person to do your website, as the example I gave earlier, or a marketing company, If you pay them $600 or more in a calendar year, you have to issue them a 1099. Now, if you recall earlier, I said corporations are exempt from getting 1099s. However, there are some exceptions. The corporate exception does not apply if you made payments to a doctor's office or an attorney for any kind of healthcare or legal services. You have to issue a doctor's office or an attorney a 1099 for services received. Now, the type of 1099 that you have to issue them depends on what service was actually provided. And I talk more about that in my video, the 1099 miscellaneous versus the 1099 NEC.